Coming up, there are tens of trillions of bacteria that call our body home, ones that aid in digestion and defense. But where we live may have a direct influence on the kinds of bacteria within us. We explore a new study. It seems there is no escaping the toxic air in our cities. We touch base with the experts about where the worst pollution is and why.
When there's no way for the air to escape, it just makes things worse.
This is an important parameter.
And check out this awkward exchange with the US president in California.
We'll be talking a little bit later and we'll get it worked out, okay?
With the very governor he blamed for LA's wildfires, which scientists say spread as fast as they did because of irregular weather. Just 2 degrees is on. Now.
You were there for us during COVID. I don't forget that.
From untreated waste that finds its way into our fresh water to the gases we release into the air that trap the sun's heat, we don't just pollute the planet, we hurt ourselves. Well, a new study explores the connection between where we live and the health of our stomach and the bacteria and viruses that live inside us. The study I mentioned earlier is titled Expanding the Human Gut Microbiome Atlas of Africa. It's really scientific in nature, but actually just suggests that the bacteria that live within us depend in part on where we live. The study says there are microorganisms in our gut that can either protect or harm us. Our lifestyle and geography help determine the bacteria and viruses we're exposed to. The environmental differences between rural and urban areas also impact the number and quantity of these organisms in and around us. The study identifies bacteria that are susceptible to antibiotics in some regions, while not in others. And researchers make a connection between the microorganisms within us and whether we have access to clean water and healthcare. It is so weird seeing politicians interact after they've been mean to each other on social media. Right, Mickey? Oh, yeah. Well, the US President Donald Trump, he visited California in late January and was met by the state's governor, Gavin Newsom. Their interaction was super weird. Well, they met just before Trump went and toured the wildfire burn sites in Los Angeles. These two men are the farthest things from friends. So the brotherly, touching, was strange. Anyways, they both said they'd work together to help people in LA recover. For context, Trump many times had threatened to withhold funding to California if the governor didn't follow his orders.
We want to get it fixed. We want to get the problem fixed. And there'll be some ways, but it's like you got hit by a bomb, right?
Yeah.
Like you got hit by a bomb. And we're going to get it fixed, so we'll get it permanently fixed, so it can't happen again. And again, we'll be talking a little bit later, and we'll get it worked out, okay?
I appreciate it, Mr. President.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Most importantly, thank you for being here. It means a great deal to all of us, not just the folks in Palisades, the folks in Altadena that were devastated. We're going to need your support. We're going to need your help. You were there for us during COVID. I don't forget that. and I have all the expectations that we'll be able to work together to get this speedy recovery.
We will. We're going to get it done.
There is speculation that the California wildfires, which burned for weeks in January, resulted in dozens of people dying and billions of dollars in damages, were ignited when electrical wires got entangled. Well, scientists have also said that global warming and irregular weather likely influenced the intensity of those flames.
These are very, very fast-moving fires. The wind speeds were incredibly strong, and we had an incredibly dry and contiguous fuel bed. So realistically, this was a perfect storm when it comes to conditions for fire disasters. The ingredients in terms of climate enabling and weather driving the fires, and the huge built environment sort of right downwind from where these ignitions occurred.
The LA wildfires also dropped the city's air quality during those awful weeks. And we've spoken with residents who said it was really difficult breathing outside during that time. But bad air quality in general can be influenced by many things. Countries like Bangladesh, Nepal, India, Pakistan experienced persistently poor air throughout January 2025. And much of it was because of fuel, transport, agricultural burning emissions, and made worse by the topography of the region. Well, that's according to the Copernicus Atmosphere Monitoring Service, with whom I had a short chat about the situation. According to IQ Air, which is a website that monitors air quality in cities across the world, you'd find the worst quality air in Lahore, Pakistan, Tehran, Iran, Chongqing, China, Dhaka, Bangladesh, and New Delhi, India. Is there a commonality in these cities why the air quality is so bad?
Yes, especially in that period, in that season, in fact. We are talking about bad air quality. We are talking about particulate matter episodes that occur in those parts of the world quite often, unfortunately, and especially the episodes are more intense in this period because of specific meteorological conditions. For instance, inversions layers that trap, in fact, the pollutants close to the ground. So it's the reason why, one of the reasons why the concentration PM and other pollutants concentration can increase. This is also, those are parts of the world that are very dense, with a lot of anthropogenic human activities, a lot of cars, motorcycle, big cities. So it means also very large sources of air pollutants, in fact, regarding transport, regarding industry, regarding residential heating, some activities also like agriculture and biomass burning in agriculture. Those are the kinds of reasons why those parts of the world are really exposed to high pollution level.
So just to get clarity on something you said, because of you kind of brought up topography there. If I look at New York, for example, which is a very dense city, but it's on the coast, it probably gets a lot of wind, so the air quality wouldn't be as bad as, say, Sarajevo, Bosnia, which is surrounded by mountains. Is that what you're saying? When there's no way for the air to escape, it just makes things worse?
Those big cities close to the coast, with exposed to windy conditions regarding meteorology, of course, this is a good factor to disperse air pollution. But of course, it doesn't mean that air pollution episodes never occur in those areas, because, as you say, those are also very dense areas with a lot of pollution sources. But it's true that the meteorological conditions are more favorable to disperse. What is very important, especially in winter, is that we have those very stable meteorological conditions with inversion layer that really act as a lead over the ground, and the pollution is underneath, like people, in fact, who are very exposed to high pollution levels.
Do you think this is going to get any better? Because we've been seeing several reports that many people are moving to coastal cities. That in itself has its dangers. For example, how would rising sea levels affect those cities? But specifically in terms of air quality, would that improve air quality in the cities that traditionally have a problem with it?
this is very good question. This is a very good question because it links, in fact, to a kind of mitigation adaptation strategies, people moving from a place to another, which could mean that maybe those anthropogenic sources, human activities, could decrease a bit, and also helped in decreasing pollution in those very dense areas. I think that, yes, I'm not sure that it will be very efficient in a short-term perspective, because in any cases, those very dense cities are dense cities with a lot of activities related to industry, related to yes, to road transport, or I think that this is more in a medium-term, long-term perspective that we can envisage this kind of approach as an adaptation strategy more than a mitigation strategy. Mitigation strategy, you will have to decrease the emissions, in fact, and to find good solutions, technological solutions or other solutions to decrease the emissions.
Yeah, of course, and includes planting lots of trees, which they say can suck up more CO2. In the meantime, while governments try to protect their own people from this pollution, how do you think people can protect themselves?
So, in fact, what is very important and what we use to do in our communication is also to recommend to some more sensitive people to protect themselves, maybe staying at home, because those very sensitive people, I mean the elders, the babies, or sensitive people who have asthma problems, things like that. When there are those episodes or air pollution episodes, we do our best, my organizations, but also other organizations do our best to inform in advance about the occurrence of such episodes and the occurrence of high pollution levels. And in that case, maybe people could adapt their way of life, maybe with teleworking, staying at home, taking care of the kids outside, and by this way protect themselves. That's more, once more, this is kind of adaptation measures that the key point to my mind is really to reduce air pollution and to mitigate air pollution. But it's true that this is very important to inform the public, to inform the policymakers, so that some measures could be taken in an emergency way to reduce the emissions during the episodes.
Just out of curiosity, I remember when I was much younger, I used to read a lot of Encyclopedia Britannica. And I remember reading at one point that in prehistoric times, animals were so much larger because of the amount of oxygen in the air and the pollutants that were not in the air. How much is our air pollution affecting our growth, our health, reducing our how long we live? Does it have such a strong impact on our timeline of life?
Yes, this has been demonstrated. There are several studies, a lot of studies, some of them led by the World Health Organization, showing that air pollution is responsible for reduction of life expectancy, and it depends on where you live. Unfortunately, there are some parts of the world that are more exposed than others. So this and for instance, in Europe, there are some studies focusing Europe. In some countries, it could be several months of months of reduction of life expectancy. So this is not nothing. And another metric, another indicator that is monitored by the health community is a premature death. In fact, because of air pollution, the number of premature deaths is also increasing in some part of the world, especially for those sensitive people I was talking about. So those who are more exposed to cardiovascular disease, asthma, bad things like that. And yes, air pollution is responsible for premature deaths.
Barcelona is home to about 5 million people, and if you've ever visited, you'd know there's never a shortage of things to do or see there. The city boasts breathtaking Gothic architecture with Catalonian, Hispanic, Mediterranean, European influences all blended together. Take the Basilica de la Sagrada Familia, for example. It was designed by Antoni Gaudí, and construction began in 1881, continues today, making it the largest unfinished Catholic church in the world. But Barcelona is also looking ahead with a new project aimed at creating a greener, more efficient public transport system. It might not be a Gaudí masterpiece, but it's set to attract just as many people.
If you've ever ridden the subway, you know how loud it gets when a train pulls into the station. And if you're waiting to get on, you've probably felt that blast of hot air as the train comes to a grinding halt. But here's the thing, when the operator hits the brakes, there's actually a lot of energy being released, energy that ends up being wasted. Authorities in Barcelona saw this as an opportunity to be more energy efficient. So now the city's subway system is recycling the energy from the trains braking to power not only the trains underground, but also electric vehicles on the streets. Bernardo Espinoza, a local commuter, says it's a nice surprise.
Que estén justo en las estaciones, porque yo, por ejemplo, yo soy usuario de coche eléctrico. Entonces, normalmente aparcas y luego transbordas con la estación. Es bueno tener el punto de carga y reutilizar la energía del frenado, que ya viene del consumo.
Here's how it works. The metro line is equipped with regenerative brakes. Unlike traditional ones that just release heat when the train slows down, they recover the energy and send it back into the grid. Every time an operator lifts their foot off the accelerator or touches the brake pedal, the heat is repurposed through electric lines. Right now, 16 subway stops are already part of the city's Metro Charge project. Plus 5 solar plants around the city power 28 out of the 163 metro stations, keeping the lights on and the elevators and ventilation systems running. Authorities say this system already saves about 6% of the total energy used by the entire metro.
Y este proyecto vamos a instalar unos dispositivos que se llaman recuperadores, que vamos a conseguir recuperar un 10% adicional de energía, con lo cual un 43% de la energía que consumen los trenes con este proyecto se recuperará.
Regenerative braking isn't a new technology. Engineers have installed them in trains and cars for decades. But experts say what makes Barcelona's project stand out is how it's repurposing wasted energy in a major city where 2.3 million people rely on public transport every day.
Existía. Si hay una novedad en cuanto a esto, es que se es capaz de introducir estos sistemas de recarga en trama urbana. Lo que estamos consiguiendo es en territorios antropizados, que quiere decir territorios que están ya ocupados por el hombre y con la actividad del hombre muy explotados, como son las zonas urbanas. Estamos encontrando la manera de aprovechar mejor.
The project is linked to a bigger global trend. In November's COP29 climate talks in Baku and the G20 summit in Rio de Janeiro, world leaders committed to doubling energy efficiency by 2030. Barcelona's system will cut CO2 emissions by 3.9 metric tons each year. To put that in perspective, that's about the same amount of energy an average US household uses in a year. And the project could inspire other large economies to implement their own sustainability schemes. Not only because it'll help in the race to keep global temperatures down, but because it's cost-effective. The city's rail network provider expects to save $7.3 million over the next 4 years, thanks to reduced energy costs. So next time you're on the subway, it might be worth asking if the train's using regenerative brakes. You never know, it could be the start of a conversation about how cities are becoming more sustainable.
So say you walk out of that eco subway and you stroll into a deli that's serving a sandwich with cheese that was grown in a lab. Would you eat it?
Our benchmark of success is traditional cheese.
Here at Better Dairy, we're creating essentially a technology for the production of dairy products without the cows.
It's almost like you're trying cheese again for the first time because you don't expect that from a cheese that didn't come from animals.
We're in one of our labs. This is the lab that looks at making cheese melt, stretch, and ooze like traditional dairy. I'm sure most people know this already, but dairy is quite inefficient and unsustainable to produce. In terms of CO2 emissions, land use, water use, it also takes a whopping $45 billion in global subsidies just to prop up the market globally. What people have not spent as much time thinking about is the fact that animal milk just isn't as optimal for human consumption. It has a lot of antibiotics, bringing up antibiotic resistance. It has a lot of missing things for human nutrition. And if you think about it, it shouldn't be a surprise. Nature has optimized dairy for animals. Animal milk has been optimized for baby animals.
So animal-free, where we use precision engineering, precision fermentation to produce microbes that can produce the proteins and all the additional constituents that go to make up high-quality dairy products without the cow.
Our benchmark of success is not plant-based cheese, right? We know that the bar is rising there, but it's still very low. We want products that taste, melt, stretch like the original that comes from a cow. The only difference in our case is that there is no cow involved and it's sustainable.
So what we're doing is producing an essential cheese protein called casein using precision fermentation, and that cheese protein is grown just like you would make beer, that you're drinking in the pub. But what we do is purify that casein and then add it to a variety of other flavor components that are natural, and then use that to essentially create a cheese product that is undifferentiated from the cheese that you enjoy every day with a nice slice of bread.
What we're trained to do at A Better Dairy when we're tasting things is to benchmark it to traditional cheese. So when I taste the products, what I'm really looking for is that mouthfeel, that crumbliness when I break it apart. And then you kind of feel it get a little bit more like soft in your mouth, and that's when you really feel the flavors coming through. And that's what I've seen when I've had our aged cheddars. Some of them age as long as 8 months.
We start off with the protein. And proteins like osteopontin go off and are used in their powdered form. Powders like casein go on and follow a traditional cheese-making approach. So they all are mixed with fats and sugars in a milk-like substance. You then use rennet, you make curds, you form curds, you then take them down different aging processes. If you look at a blue cheese versus the Parmesan versus the cheddar, all of them have curd formation. They then differ in the later steps of the cheese-making process. We follow exactly that same principle. And that's where we're super excited to work with existing cheesemakers, because each of them have their own journeys that they take with their cheeses, different aging techniques, aging places. Some of them have caves, some of them have all kinds of different things. We would love to take our base and partner with them and bring a whole range of exciting products to the market.
And that's our show. I'll leave you with a project that began in Iraq in 2022 and is still under construction. It's a sewage treatment facility located where the Euphrates and Tigris rivers merge in Basra, which is reportedly one of the few cities in the Middle East without an effective water treatment system. Much of Iraq was destroyed in a string of wars since the 1980s, but Basra was especially hit hard as a city on the front line of the conflict with Iran.